First up on our list, Nature's Garden, a guide to identifying, harvesting, and preparing edible wild plants by the author, Samuel Thayer. This is an amazing book. I really wish I had this one when I first started in 2008 because he covers so much information on how to harvest these plants, where to find them, tricks for harvesting them properly so you're not wasting your time, and he covers good ways to use them. He doesn't give recipes like John Kallis does. However, this book has a lot more plants in it. There's probably about 40 to 50 plants that he covers in this book. And some of the plants take up like 20 or 30 pages apiece. So there's a lot of great information. Another thing I really like about this book is it's sprinkled with humor all throughout the book. Of course, you've got a lot of nice color photographs here. The text is, like I said, sprinkled with a lot of humor. He's also very good at speaking from his own experiences, so you're not going to be reading a bunch of copy and pasted information like you might find in some of your basic field guides. As you can see, the pictures are very nice. Some of them are large, some of them are small. He breaks up each plant into multiple sections as far as identifying it, where it grows, some general information, how to harvest it, and how to prepare it. He also talks about some of the lesser-known parts of certain plants that most people don't really know of, and that's another nice resource to have. If I had had this book whenever I first started, there would have been a whole lot more plants that I would have been using and using properly, again, without all of that trial and error. And it's only because of how descriptive he is whenever he's talking about the plants and how to harvest them and how to use them. I find this book to be extremely relevant and also to be extremely informative. Samuel Thayer's books are among some of the most informative and well-written books on the entire subject of foraging. He doesn't cover medicinal plants, however, he does cover edible plants, and that's all this book focuses on. But don't discount it because of that. If you miss out on this book, you're really going to be missing a lot of crucial information that'll get you to foraging success a whole lot faster. So make sure you keep an eye out for this book, and I've also done a review on this book as well, which I'll put in the description down below. I absolutely love this book. There's just so much detail and so much information. It really is just a good book. Okay, for the next entry, we have Edible Wild Plants, Wild Foods from Dirt to Plate by Dr. John Kallis. This book is amazing. It was like the fourth or fifth book that I actually bought on the subject of foraging. However, it is one of the best and most detailed for how to actually use these plants. But not only that, it covers detailed harvesting information as well, and he covers the plants throughout their general life cycle. For each plant, you not only get some detailed information, but you also get great recipes. These are simple recipes, but they're very nice to have, so that way you know that you're cooking with the plants properly, and this just gives you an idea on how to use these plants in your local diet. There are awesome color photographs in this book. This guy is a PhD in nutrition, and he studies the nutrition of wild plants in his own laboratory. Right here, he's talking about chickweed's toxic lookalike, which is scarlet pimpernel, and he gives really good comparison photographs here for you to look at. You'll note this book isn't color-coded because he only covers about 14 different plants in this book. However, each plant is covered through about 20 or more pages of information. Every plant that you're going to find in this book grows all across the United States of America. So these are really common plants, and these are also really easy plants for anybody to identify. I wish I had this book whenever I first started. It wasn't in print whenever I first started in 2008. However, I wish I had it because if I did, I would have been foraging plants a lot sooner and been able to actually succeed in adding these plants to my diet and to my food. That's something that a lot of books don't really talk about much. Ironically enough, you want to learn how to eat wild edibles, but they don't give you too much information on how to actually go about that and make them taste good. A lot of plants naturally taste good, but there are some that require some special preparation, and he covers some of that within these plants. Or like dandelion, where you've got to harvest them just the right way. For the next entry on our list, we have Indian Herbology of North America by Alma R. Hutchins. I really wish I'd had this book when I first started foraging medicinal plants because it gives a lot of detailed information on how to use these plants for medicine. There's not a lot of pictures in this book. All the pictures are just basic simple line drawings as we can see here. This isn't a book that I would recommend for identification features. However, if I had had this book when I first started out, I would have been making medicine a lot faster and my medicine would have been a lot more effective because this book really covers the information on how to make the medicine effective. All the plants in this book are listed in alphabetical order, and there's around 100 plants that are listed in this book. So it gives a lot of great information on over 100 plants, which is really, really nice. It talks about the solvents, it talks about how they're used, it talks about the effects that these plants will have on the body. But like I said, had I had this book when I first started, I would have had a lot more success in making medicine, and it wouldn't have taken near as much trial and error, which can be really discouraging, but it can also be dangerous too. So make sure that you research through a lot of books and guides and know what you're doing and what the plants are and how they work. For the next entry on our list, we're going to be looking at the Peterson Field Guide to Plants and Herbs of Eastern and Central North America by Stephen Foster and James A. Duke. This book is a really, really good field guide. It covers over 530 plants that exist from the Mississippi all the way east to the East Coast. It doesn't cover too many plants in the far south like Florida, but it does cover several of those as well. Not every plant that's in this book will be in your area, but that's okay because it covers so many plants. This book has a lot more generalized information. This book doesn't tell you how to use each of these plants for medicine, but it does tell you how they were historically used and, in where it's possible, how science has confirmed these plants and their medicinal activities. There are color photographs for almost every plant, usually 1 to 2 photographs for each plant. On each page, you're going to be finding anywhere from 1 to 3 plants. Like on this page, we have 2 plants that are listed here. The bottom corner of the book is color-coded, corresponding with the color of the flowers. So this makes it easy to flip to the certain color if you're trying to identify a plant out in the field. I wish I'd had this book whenever I first started foraging, just simply because it's so good for plant identification, in my opinion. I find this to be a really good book for plant identification, and it would have gotten me to identify a lot more plants in a much faster time. Because whenever you're trying to learn the subject of foraging, you realize there's so many plants. How exactly do you identify all of them properly and know you're identifying the plant properly? You do that by following field guides. And you have to have a good field guide, and I would recommend having several field guides instead of relying on just one field guide. But if you have to choose just one field guide to start out with, I would definitely choose this one over the other Peterson Field Guide for edible plants. I say that because the edible plant field guide is so outdated, and most of the plants in it aren't covered through photographs, they're done through line drawings. A lot of the plants that are in this book are also in the Edible Wild Plant book. However, there are a few exceptions. There are some of the plants in the Edible Field Guide that aren't in this one, and vice versa. So make sure you take that into account. However, this is still a really awesome book to have, and I very highly recommend it for anybody wanting to have success in foraging as fast as possible and be as accurate as possible. Wildflowers and Ferns of Indiana Forests by Michael A. Homoya. I wish I had this guide whenever I first started foraging because it covers a lot of the more obscure plants in my area. I know this is for Indiana, but you might check with your local colleges because this book was actually published by Indiana University. So if you check with your local colleges, you're probably going to be finding a book that's more accurate to your area than this will be. There's color coding on the side of the book, so this helps me flip towards the proper flower color just by finding the corresponding color here on the side of the book. This book is extremely in-depth and it has a lot of great color photographs, high-definition color photographs too, which is a really nice thing to have in a guide. This book doesn't really cover edible or medicinal uses. It does mention them in a few places, but generally this is just more for identification. This is a really good guide for botany or anybody who's interested in botanical identification and botanical terms. It's because of this book that I found a lot of plants that I walk right by and I never knew what they were, but I was always curious. I could just never find them in any of my other field guides. So this has been a really big help for me, and it's extremely beneficial to have guides that cover all of your area. As we can see, the color photographs are really nice here. They aid a whole lot in proper identification of the plant. This book also covers the companion plants that generally grow around in the same type of habitat as any plant you're looking at, so that's really nice. I really appreciate the effort that he put into this book, and I really wish that I had this whenever I first started foraging. For the final entry on our list, we have The Forager's Harvest, a complete guide to identifying, harvesting, and preparing edible wild plants, again by the author, Samuel Thayer. I have 2 of Samuel Thayer's books, and I believe he's written 2 at this point, and is working on a 3rd one. When the 3rd one comes out, I'll certainly do a review on that. This is one of those books that, whenever I first got it, I didn't quite know what to think. I was so put off because there's not as many pictures as his 2nd book. And ironically enough, I bought these books in backwards order. I bought this one last and the other one, Nature's Garden, first. So I had gotten used to the one that has more photographs, and this one doesn't have near as many photographs. However, don't discount it because of the lack of photographs. The photographs that are in it are extremely nice, and they are pretty close to HD. They're really good quality photographs. The information in this book is extremely complete and very thorough. He also again covers it from his experiences. In the front of this book, he gives you an awesome calendar for helping you to time the wild harvest, separating the edible plant parts into different categories and color-coding the chart depending on when the best time to use them is. So this is a really nice resource to have. If I had had this book whenever I first started, just like all the other ones, I would have been harvesting and foraging a whole lot more plants with a whole lot more success. So these are the type of books that I would recommend for anybody who's just getting started foraging, and these are all of the books that I wish I had had. So I thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something. If you want to learn more about edible or medicinal plants, make sure to subscribe.